there arose a dispute among the disciples as to which of them would be greatest. And Jesus, perceiving the thought of their heart, took a little child and set him by him, and said to them, Whoever receives this little child in my name receives me, and whoever receives me receives him who sent me. For he who is least among you will be great. And John answered and said, Master, we saw someone casting out demons in your name, and we forbade him, because he does not follow with us. But Jesus said to him, Do not forbid him, for he who is not against us is on our side. Now it came to pass, when the time came for him to be received up, that he steadfastly set his face to go to Jerusalem, and sent messengers before his face, and as they went they entered a village of the Samaritans to prepare for him. But they did not receive him, because his face was set for the journey to Jerusalem. And when his disciples James and John saw this, they said, Lord, do you want us to command fire to come down from heaven and consume them, just as Elijah did? But he turned and rebuked them and said, You do not know what manner of spirit you are of. For the Son of Man did not come to destroy men's lives, but to save them. And they went to another village. My name's Arthur, and I thank you for joining me as we share together these verses from Luke chapter 9, verses 46 to 56. It's all about a party spirit. Society is divided up into parties of all kinds, and Christendom is divided up into very, very many different groups. But society is divided as well, and so often various groups struggle with one another. And this arose for the disciples. Jesus had been telling them how they were going up to Jerusalem, where he would be betrayed. He would be handed over to the elders, the chief priests and the scribes, who would condemn him to death and hand him over to the Gentiles. The Romans would then crucify him. They could not get their head around this, because Jesus was the Messiah. The Messiah was the one who was to rule the world. So that was completely contrary to their understanding of what was going to happen. Their perception was that Jesus would be proclaimed king, and his disciples would obviously have a significant part in the kingdom that he would establish. But they could not all have first place, so they were disputing among themselves who would have first place, which of them would be greatest, which of them would sit beside him when he sat in his kingdom. Now, they didn't do this in front of Jesus, they did it separately, but Jesus was aware of what was in their heart, and so he took a small child and set him by him. And he said to them, Whoever receives this little child in my name receives me, and whoever receives me receives him who sent me. For he who is least among you will be great. Jesus' answer was to point them to a child, a person who had no status, who had no greatness, and to say, the important thing is not the position you hold in relation to me, but whether you receive me or not. Because the distinction between believers and unbelievers is far greater than any petty demarcation we might make between one believer and another, or indeed between one sinner and another. And so his emphasis is, whoever receives this little child in my name receives me. In other words, if take somebody of no importance and significance and treat them well for Jesus' sake, then that is as if you are doing it for Jesus. And if you do it for Jesus, then you receive the Father as well. For the way that we express our faith to God is not just by saying long prayers or giving large sums of money to arbitrary charities or religious causes, but by personal caring for people in Jesus' name. Whoever receives this little child in my name receives me. And concerning the disciples, they would all be great. They would all be honoured. And it was foolish for them to be squabbling about who would have the greatest honour, when they would all have great honour relative to other people. We need to understand what are the real issues. So we have two more examples of this principle. John had seen somebody who wasn't one of the official disciples casting out demons in Jesus' name. And John had said to him, "You're not allowed to do that because you're not one of us." But Jesus says, "Of course he's one of us. Do not forbid him, for he who is not against us is on our side." Again, he's pointing to the division between those who stand on Jesus' side and those who are against Jesus. This is the big issue. He who is not against us is on our side. You either are for Jesus or you're against him. And this man who was casting out demons in Jesus' name was evidently on Jesus' side. If he is for us, he is on God's side. Doesn't matter whether he's part of our particular little sub-organization or not. The crucial issue is whether he is for Jesus or not. And then we have a third example. Eventually, Jesus leaves Galilee to go up to Jerusalem. He is determined to go to Jerusalem, even though he knows he will be crucified there. He will be rejected there. And as he's journeying through Samaria, and as evidently was his practice when there was a group of people travelling together, he would send a few people ahead to get organised to warn the village that they were coming and to find some place for them to sleep for the night, maybe to organise meals and things like that. But when the Samaritans in this village heard that it was Jesus and that he wasn't going to stay there, he wasn't coming to see them as such, he was just passing through, and that he was set to go to Jerusalem, they took issue at this, and they would not receive him. They would not accept the business. No, they were proud in their distinction from Jerusalem. And when James and John saw this, they said, "Lord, they have rejected you. They're your enemies. They're on the other side. Shall we bring down fire from heaven to consume them?" But of course this was not Jesus' will. He had come to save, and so he rebukes them. "You do not know what manner of spirit you are of. The Son of Man did not come to destroy men's lives, but to save them." These people would have another opportunity. After Jesus had been to Jerusalem, the disciples would come back to this village and declare to them that Jesus is risen from the dead. Jesus, as always, would just go and make alternative arrangements. Go on to another village, which would receive him. Those who receive him, of course, receive a blessing for doing so. And those who do not receive him miss out on that blessing. It's on their own head, though. The circumstances that Jesus was in were completely different from those of Elijah. When he called down fire from heaven, it was because the king was seeking to destroy him and had sent the soldiers to arrest him. Now Jesus had simply asked for a bed for the night and been rejected because he was going to Jerusalem. Jesus understood that party spirit and was not going to fight them over it. The principle for us, though, we need to learn the lesson. We should not be making petty disputes, arguing among ourselves, when the real distinction is between those who believe in Jesus and those who do not. And so we should rejoice when we see others ministering in Jesus' name, rather than hinder them because they are not part of our group. And when we find those in another group resisting us, for the Samaritans also worshipped God, but not according to the practice of the Jews. If those of another group would resist us, still we do not fight against them, but we just work around them. Go to another village. For the Son of Man did not come to destroy men's lives, but to save them.